Warning, this podcast has some swears in it.
I'd rate it PG-13 at most, but let's just be on the safe side and say viewer discretion is advised. No, it's okay. I'll record through Discord. You know what happens through Discord? People's audio skips or peaks, or they get robotic, or it's just not recorded. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to deal with that again. It's annoying.
Yeah, it's way better now.
Is it way better now that we can hear you from all the way back there?
Yeah.
Do you have a can you can open? Because I don't have anything today.
The juice that I have in cans hasn't been available for a while, so I just get the carton stuff.
Do you not drink anything besides that juice?
Not really, no. It's kind of the same food situation, Lamau.
Okay, fair enough. Time to raise your blades, heroes.
And check some vibes.
It's the Heroes Blade Vibe Check. In. Now, the quote-unquote intro.
Yeah, so I got Princess Peach Showtime in the mail. I haven't started it yet today, but I was a really big fan of the Super Princess Peach game on the Nintendo DS. So anytime that Nintendo lets her, explore and be more of a character...
They let her out of the cage?
Yeah.
They're like, I guess we shall give the audience what they want. It's like them finally doing a Zelda game.
Yeah, it's a similar situation with that. As soon as that's available, I'm gonna cop that. I think it's, you gotta, give your girls the numbers so that Nintendo knows to keep that shit coming.
Yeah, I think I'll actually make an effort to get that actual Zelda game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're just gonna have
Zelda,
that,
starring the main character, Zelda.
You know, we might, otherwise we'll get, a Wanda Gamelon situation or whatever the hell that, CDI Zelda games were. Okay. I'm gonna hit you with this, and then we're just gonna get in the episode.
Alright,
so Fallout London.
Yeah.
So it's a big overhaul mod for Fallout 4. And the team, it's a mod team, they worked on this shit for years. I thought the person, I don't know, whoever did the opening, they got a freaking sick voice, but whatever. But I sent you a screenshot of the police box, the blue police box, that you could find apparently 15 of around London, and I've only found 2 so far.
Oh yeah, I pointed at that, like Doctor Who mentioned.
So apparently there is very obviously a Doctor Who reference, but it goes even further.
Oh shit.
In the beginning of the game, as you're doing your character creation, you're a person floating in a jar, in a vat. And there's 2 doctors looking at you through the glass. And I didn't recognize their voices, but as it turns out, they were voiced by Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, who were the 7th and 6th Doctor, respectively. Mm-hmm. So they somehow had the budget and or the connections to get 2 doctors to voice act in their fan mod. And at which, to me, I'm like, cool, I don't know who these people are, but then a bunch of people were talking about it, and then I looked it up, and I'm like, cool. That's the tip of the iceberg for the mod. So here it is. Fallout. Magic the Gathering Universes Beyond's Fallout crosses over with Universes Beyond Doctor Who and merged into a fan game.
Wow. What a truly beautiful world we live in.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun in that. And I might have some Doctor Who mentioned this episode, so let's get into that, huh?
Yeah, let's run it. Whose turn is it to do the intro?
That was the intro.
Oh, okay. Then we're good. What's up?
The episode we did the intro bit does the pre-recording thing does the intro bit, and we have pre-episode amble, and now that was the post-opening amble, and everyone should know who we are at this point. So let's just get this shit started. We had one person reach out to us through Spotify, and a brand new person. It was Jalaxed from the Legendary Creature Discord. So, hey, Legendary Creature listeners, what's up? What's good? This came through Spotify. I checked YouTube. No one's been commenting anything. No problem. Jalaxed says it was me who didn't hear the podcast name in the LCP episode where we were mentioned. So funny to hear you guys mention that. I listen to podcasts while cooking, so I must have walked away during the mention to grab something. Listened to a few of your episodes so far, and you guys are great. Do you think Vren the Restless gets a pass? With Vren becoming a 6/6, you can start swinging, and if they block, it triggers his ability. I made a Voltron list around it after seeing the interaction in the pre-release. So, Vren...
Yeah, Vren the Relentless is a 3/4 legendary creature rat rogue for 2 blue and a black with ward 2. And if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 rat 1/1 black rat creature tokens with this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. Goodness. Put the blade on that guy for sure, Zeus.
Yeah, there was a weird thing I saw earlier today through Mana Curves, where they put up Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves and said that they don't see these cards a whole lot anymore. And people are like, well, that's because no one's attacking. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting there like, I attack
all the time. Combat's the best part of the game, actually.
Last time I checked...
though,
sorry, continue. Go ahead.
I feel like Boots and Greaves actually, call out more removal than maybe they protect you from. Sometimes
no doubt.
You put that shit on, and then you, move to equip the Greaves, and then immediately, regardless of what's going on, people are like, all right, well, let me think about that, and end up, spending some interaction, probably, because they're like... I don't want to lose the opportunity to, be able to do this later.
Yeah, I think the thing is that Lightning Greaves giving your creature Shroud is a huge deterrent for a lot of strategies that requires you to target your own things. And moving your Greaves around is just, an annoying additional step to be like, okay, move the Greaves, target my thing with, an equipment. Or an aura or something, and then re-equip the Greaves. And Boots, I mean, maybe we've, gotten more efficient, where, other equipment that offer haste or hexproof or something have additional bonuses on top of them than just...
like Ward 2 and Unblockable and hacking your creature type to Assassin.
Yes, if we're going just through the Brotherhood Regalia route. I was also thinking of Lava Spur Boots recently, where it's it's a little more efficient in terms of mana value.
Yeah, that's like haste in Ward 2, and you can find it with Urza Saga.
It's Ward 1, but yeah, you're still having that one additional mana in the cost could probably matter for a lot of different people. And a lot of stuff arbitrarily has ward, gives ward on top of whatever else is doing. So sometimes you don't necessarily need all that equipment all the time. And I've just found that when it comes to Greaves, if I can get rid of it from a deck, I do. So yeah, I can kind of see why people are just not playing it. Also, last time I checked...
That's a good point, though. People not playing it as much because the stuff that they would be wanting to protect already has the built-in protection, like the ward or whatever. Or in the case of Ezreal, the sacrifice a clue, give it indestructible type of thing. A lot of things have that, not regenerate, but regenerate.
Yeah, and they can maybe react to react to things. So other people were pointing out that you're just more likely to pay some kind of like 1 mana protection spell. That probably has upside.
Keeping that suite of effects.
Dawn's Truce now is like a thing that you can just have on hand. So like, yeah, there's a lot of options that are just quote unquote like more versatile, or you're willing to keep a hand on it for those reasons. Like, yeah, Magic's obviously very different than what it was like 5 or 10 years ago. So I can definitely see why it's on a bit of a downtrend there.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Vren's case, just so we can just swing back to that really quickly before we move on to the next bit here. Vren just, turning Vren sideways is obviously like a great way for people to not have their thing go into exile. I think when it comes to like between mill and exile effects, people are like, if my creature can die, great. If it gets into exile, it sucks. If my deck gets milled, I might be able to still use stuff in my graveyard. Or if it gets exiled, like, it's that one extra step further of just being untouchable. So I can see how a tap 6/6 rad can really fuck up someone's day here.
Yeah, people are not looking for a 6/6 on turn 4. Like, what are you going to do about that? You're blocking. You're not trying to get hit. Well, I mean, you might be. This is a 40 wizard have format, but if you're taking 6 commander damage at that, like, how many of those do you have in you? Not that many.
No. So Jalax, thanks for listening, and thank you for submitting your comment. You too can be part of future episodes if you just comment on Spotify or comment on YouTube or hit us up on Twitter at HBVC_MTG, and we might be able to just shoot the shit and talk about what makes the pass, you know?
Yeah, we love to run our mouths about the vibe checks.
So it's soapbox time already.
Right.
Because I've been thinking about, like, you know, hey, how do we create topics for an episode? Because some people dedicate a whole episode, like the Legendary Creature Podcast, where they're like, you know, what about mana bases, and like, you know, what do you do to win the game, or is the win even worth it, depending on how, you know, you lean into it, right? So in this case, I just think, hey, maybe just put a discussion thing on the list.
Yeah, it's your podcast. If you want to get on a soapbox,
yeah, but Quinn, give me a topic. God damn it, you're here too.
I will one of these days. No, don't worry.
Okay, well then you're making the next spreadsheet for us, because anyway, next episode we got Light joining us, so you can expect that in a couple weeks. So we're getting right on in that. So today's soapbox, because it came up in some commentary in like some podcasts and stuff that I've been listening to. House band cards.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
So, I got the link there for you to look at this, but what I thought was really interesting was sort of this kind of uptick trend of listening to people be like, God, we gotta ban this card in our group, and you're just like, oh my God, like, what the heck, right? And to kind of go for the engagement, which, like, there was some people being like, Magister Sphinx in 2024, and I'm like, aha, but you see, that was from like a decade ago, so it's not quite the same, but
yeah,
I'd ask the question.
Comments, they're like, questioning Magister Sphinx. I forgot that existed, and then
people like out of the zeitgeist.
This must have been in the past.
So, I'd put out a question.
Gamers, it was.
I put out the question where I'm like, hey, who's had in-house bands? Maybe I should have specified it was for EDH, but, you know, whatever. And I'm like, here's a couple of cards Cole and Quinn have respectively, or like have had respectively as in-house bands, or have expressed disdain for, because we're in the culture of pre-game discussions, Rule 0, asking permission to run certain types of cards, or notifying people that certain things exist, just so you don't go tilting into the sun. You know, you don't go down to the mine salt factory.
About having a conversation about the types of experiences that we're looking for, so that we can participate in maximum vibes curation.
So what I find really funny is both of these have the Double Masters printing, but your card up forever until the heat death of the universe or this card gets banned is Dockside Extortionist, which you respectively always say, hey, I would prefer it if you did not play this card against me for reasons.
Yeah, literally every quarter there's the ban list announcement from the Commander Rules Committee, and every quarter I tweet that I would like to not see that in games that you play against me, thanks. And recently I've started just like turning the fucking replies off on that because people think they're very clever when they come up in the comments about this thing that I'm like, hey, I don't want to see this card. They're like, great, I'll play extra of that card around you. Sounds great. I'm just like, you're not funny.
Yeah, you're like, haha, all right, so I'm not playing with you now. That's kind of literally how that goes. So Magister Sphinx, why was this here? So, a lot of people, like, that I've talked to, like, and you too, like, you haven't played Magic for a really long time in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of our lives and everything. Because, like, I think, like, what, 5 years, give or take, for you at this point?
Yeah, from Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah. So, you were not there, Quinn, when the rules said that when you cast a clone as a copy of a legendary creature, that they both just died. They both ceased to exist because we cannot allow this temporal manipulation to happen. So, we would be playing in like 2012 when like we were trying to get our decks together, and some of us, me, had no existent budget for anything. So I only had whatever I opened or whatever I could buy for like pennies.
Oh, yeah,
and I would play
kitchen table Magic.
Hot garbage. And some of my friends would be like, I play Maelstrom Wanderer and all this other, like, Sharoom the Hedgeman and shit like
and
that.
you're just getting bodied.
Yeah. So, a couple of my friends were playing Esper decks, like your Sharoom, your Centriplets. And for them, one of their win cons was Magister Sphinx. But the problem is that when we're in this developing internal meta, where everyone wants to play legendary creatures, who were also subject to the Tuck rule, by the way. And clones were super abundant, even in Standard. We would just show up to a table, and anyone who was playing blue had a clone, and that meant they had a copy of whatever the best creature was in, like, abundance. And, like, we're talking about, like, we're thinking, oh man, Sakashima clone decks today, they wouldn't be able to exist if it was still like the old rules, so it's
or they
completely
would just
different.
Be wicked piles of removal.
Yeah, so if one Magister Sphinx showed up, everyone's life total was going to become 10 somehow. And then it was like, great, so who has more Sphinxes and is not willing to just sit there and not turn them sideways? And, like, that was kind of the environment we were in. That also meant, as part of, like, these house rules or these in-house bans, was that consecrated Sphinxes could not draw off each other, was, like, a internal errata that we had in our own group. Because we were like, man, if these two guys get Magister Sphinx triggers off each other, we're just going to be sitting here the entire game until, like, they be like, I'm good, and they have, like, half their deck in their hand,
Yeah, they do have that sort of, like, toxic feedback loop, and
it's a May ability,
you don't want
right?
it to end in both of those people having all of their decks in their hands, then you gotta just, like, have that gentle gamers agreement and not draw those cards.
And the thing is, again, like, the Consecrated Sphinx says May, and that's all fine and dandy. But the problem is that, like, back then,
value is extremely good, is the thing.
Yes,
and gamers they're gonna grab that value.
So we made an agreement at some point. We're like, we need to ban Magister Sphinx because it definitively ends games in a weird way too quickly. But Soren got the cut, and I'll go over that in a second here. And then we may or may not have had banned Derevi as a commander while the banned as commander, like, templating was still going on for the ban list, because we just found, like, the way that our friend had built it was just non-stop control, tap your thing down, get momentous amount of value. But obviously as
so
time's
that
gone on.
Commander died for the sins of one gamer.
Yeah, and he was okay with it because some part of him, I think, also kind of realized that the way he had built it with the intent that he had in mind at the time was too powerful. So it was just
like, yeah, fair enough.
Also, there were clones in that too, so like ran into the same issue. And yeah, like we were there when Prophet of Krufix was unbanned. We were there when Sylvan Primordial was unbanned, and even if you weren't a green deck, you were still just annihilating someone's board state. You're like, oh man, I can't wait to have this super cool enchantment out. Nope, fuck it, it's gone. Like that's how absolutely busted it was. And then obviously as times have changed and commanders changed, like we haven't done this. We were obviously like, yeah, Magister Sphinx is not banned anymore. That's kind of dumb in 2024. Like seeing Magister Sphinx would be like seeing a UFO, you know?
Yeah, there's plenty of worse ways to die now.
And the difference between Magister Sphinx versus the Planeswalker Sorin, the triple black pip to generic 5-mana Sorin, was that one person would be set to 10, and Planeswalker clones were like non-existent outside of like I don't know, some clone from Tarkir that I can't remember.
Clever impersonator.
There we go. Yeah, thank you. So it didn't happen as often. That's why one got the cut, the other one didn't. And then, of course, the whole reason for this whole soapbox and discussion is like, it is very interesting when we hear about all these like stores have their own in-house ban list, but it's like reading a thesis statement of how many bans that they have of like, why would you justify doing that? And then
I actually think it's cool and good when stores have those in-house ban lists, because it's just like having the pre-game discussion for gamers, and you can default to building to that if you want to have like a guaranteed experience that's going to be to the metagame that store wants to have.
And you know, I think it's easy to like bag on a lot of these places. What was the one called, the Wharf or whatever? Mm-hmm. Like, there's probably a reason why, but that also opens up deck building. Like, yeah, maybe it is just Battlecruiser, but at least you can open up and like play a bunch of other cool stuff that kind of doesn't quite push the line in the sand the way that a lot of those other cards do.
And additionally, it's not like they're going to rappel through your window and take your cards away if you don't play by that. You can just like have a conversation with the gamers at the table, decide whether or not you're going to abide by those rules, and choose your decks accordingly or whatever.
Yeah, so the thing that it comes down to is that like, because of what the work that has been done by the rules committee in terms of creating resources to provide to people so they know how to have those conversations. If that means all of you want to do no ban list commander, you can do that with your group because you all agree to it. If you want a card banned because everyone happens to play it, like Commander Clash from MTG Goldfish? Mm-hmm. They have bans each season depending on, hey, we're not going to play Sol Ring. We're not going to play Arcane Signet. We're not going to do XYZ of all these conditions because they find that the cards are either boring or they're too good in the vacuum.
If there being a Ristic Study in every blue deck, you can just talk about that with your play group and be like, hey, can we not do this in the interest of like variety?
Mr. Fitzy Fitz.
Ways to draw cards.
Mr. Fitzy Fitz asks the group, hey, I need to cut a card draw spell in my Jeskai cycling deck. Here's a photo to prove that I am not in mortal danger. We're like, cool. I immediately first line up, standing in the courtroom saying, cut Ristic Study. But he's like, but Cole, it can allow me to draw 2 cards in a turn. And I said what I said, but I also say it every time. Cut your fucking Ristic Study. But again, I also see the point of drawing 2 cards in your...
Yeah, no, he actually raises a good point there.
I'll concede to that. But yeah, the point being is that when it comes to these discussions of like, you know, I imagine most people try to play with like-minded people, And if it ends up resulting in, hey, I think we'll unban this card and test it out as a group, and everyone says, cool, we all agree to that, then it sounds good. And if one person says, I don't consent, well then maybe still don't play the card. But yeah, I will point out in the in this comment thread here, everyone's like, I forgot Matches of Sphinx existed. Yeah, so did most people.
We gotta get some Esper Reanimator Gamer to show people the fear again.
We need Sharoom the Hegemon to come back.
Well, alright, relax. We don't need that. We don't need like half of a combo in the command zone. We can do more creative things.
Someone's like, why would Soren get the pass? Again, like, it's a Planeswalker, it's got triple black in it, it's 5 mana. I feel like there's a lot more standing in its way than Matches of Sphinx. Someone's like, we banned Mindslaver effects because it was just not suited for like a game night with the play group. And I'm like, yeah, because I had a friend who did loop. Because I had a friend who did loop it, and it's fucking terrible to sit there and deal with that as he like tries to find the best way to screw you over. Someone said that Blood Moon was house banned at one of their local stores, and it's the only ban. And I'm like, okay.
I understand that, but also, I don't know, man.
Listen, I'm just considering myself thankful that I haven't had to sit down across you playing
It is
Blood
kind
Moon.
of culturally banned, but I do play Blood Moon because I warned people for months that I was going to play Blood Moon, and then I showed pictures of my Blood Moons and was like,
I just feel as if
time
the
to get your affairs in order.
The threat of the photo is more intimidating than you actually playing Blood Moon.
I genuinely do, though. You have to, like, back up what you're talking about, though. But I gave everybody ample time to get prepared.
So anyway, that is my soapbox for today. I wasn't super passionate about it, but I think discussions of what is allowable, if you have like an established play group, just check in with people, be like, I'm not happy to see this card. What do we all feel about it? And then see what people are willing to do to adjust to it. Because you'd be surprised how some people are willing to not necessarily like accommodate, but shift gears because maybe...
Totally. Early in my EDH career, some friends like gently put the hand on my shoulder and was like, Quinn, you don't need to put Terror of the Peaks in every deck. And I was like,
but Terror of the Peaks is so cool, though.
You are right. I don't need to put Terror of the Peaks in every deck.
Fine, I'll put Warstorm Surge in. Jeez.
Yeah, so we branched out. We found some different versions of those effects and some other things to do, and it made me a better deck builder overall. So, like, thanks, gamers.
But yeah, so, hey, to anyone who is listening, do you mind letting us know if you had a house ban or rules errata or some weird thing like that? Just let us know on YouTube or here on Spotify, or just, tweet at us. We'd like to talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Vibe checks.
Vibe checks, indeed.
What the fuck is this one?
I played the other day against a Mistform Ultimus deck, and they had a reality chip in the 99, and they didn't have the Mistform Ultimus out at that time, but they did have the reality chip out, and they did have 2 Heroes Blades, and you know what? That jellyfish picked up those knives just fine. Had an ass that would not quit. You are simply not getting through that wall, and the jelly's like a meaningful threat at that point. So it's just like, hang on. Even with just one of those, this is like fine.
So, just as a reminder, because Neon Dynasty is cycling out from Standard very soon, if not already, the reality chip is 1 in the blue for a legendary artifact creature equipment jellyfish that's a 0/4. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, but as long as the reality chip is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library with reconfigure 2 in a blue. Which is, again, my assessment of reconfigure creatures has just gone way up over the last, 3 months. They're all very good.
I think reconfigure creatures are really strong. The reality chip in particular, I've always been a fan of future side effects, but that one is just chef's kiss. What a great card. But
also going to, a 3/6 and just turning sideways, damn, did I just see a man-o-war in the water? No, it's the reality ship holding a fucking sword. Holy shit. Yeah, that sounds all right. Point proven.
Right?
I really want to get one because of the low-key reconfigure creature kick I've been on recently. But
I think you should do it. You might make that like another like sub bit.
maybe.
Like you're the Bloodrick guy, but you're also the guy who has like more than one reconfigured creature in every deck.
I mean, hey, I put Rabbit Battery in another deck recently, and I have a bit. Well, okay, we're gonna get into it later. We're gonna get to it soon. So, as part of one of the decks that I'll be mentioning later, Shay Cormac from the Assassin's Creed, the Universes Beyond Assassin's Creed set, I think also passes the vibe check. The reason being is that while you have your 2-mana 1/1, well, that is now a 2-mana 4/3. That's already great. Being able to Shadow Spear plus remove all the protection and indestructible and hexproof stuff, great. But also being able to Voltron your way to victory through Shave with like very little investment, probably does great. And just being able to kickstart from a 1/1 to end game is like pretty good.
Yeah, I think his whole game plan is to like shoot creatures down and get rewarded for it with those +1/+1 counters, and then beat the shit out of them as like, this is my control win condition. And Hero's Blade just like shortens the clock a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that in a hot second here. This next one should come to no surprise to anyone who's been seeing Quinn tweet recently or playing any games with Quinn recently. You know him. You love him.
He's Hugs, Grizzly Guardian. Gamers, I am fucking obsessed with this 5/5 with Trample. And you know what? I think that 5/5 with Trample could enter the battlefield and pick up the Hero's Blade and become an 8/7.
An 8/7 with Trample? Yeah.
That seems fine.
That seems great. Because, you know, you're playing a Gruul deck. You might as well smash.
Oh yeah, we are absolutely turning sideways in that deck. I just added the Blackblade Reforged the other day, and that felt incredible.
Oh no!
Oh yes.
Well, that's a no. That is a
just
no.
an incredibly strong weapon. But we also can just like give the guy the Hero's Blade. I think that'd be fine.
Yeah. Hugs. I also grabbed a Hugs, the alternate frame one recently, so I'm gonna kind of be eyeballing that guy because he seems pretty good.
Nice. I keep looking at people's like red-green inclusive decks and thinking, could you play Hugs?
Do you think he makes cut? And we'll talk about it later, because it's going to be part of the content section that we're going to be coming up to in a second here. But yeah, standard rotation's happening.
Yeah, standard rotation's happening. Yeah, do we want to talk about content then?
Yeah, Hero's Blade vibe checks are done. I've just been going on repeat on a few different decks recently, so you know, Raiden Haggadoon, yup. Craig Boone, sure, yeah. So let's go into content. What's going on?
So yeah, speaking of standard rotation, I've been watching some fucking standard content as of late. It's looking really fun. In particular, we've been watching videos by Ash Lizzle. She's got a video out recently about the Gruul Dragonhawk deck that she put together. And there's also an Orzhov Nurturing Pixie deck that's just like looping Hopeless Nightmare and returning things you don't want, or rather your opponents would rather you didn't have the opportunity to recast back to your hand. So it's just like, it's pretty cool. There's also a Bats deck that looks neat. Standard sweet. I really am interested in this cool Dragonhawk deck, though. You just like ramp into Dragonhawk. And
so I saw Levdev's video on Twitter, maybe it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But I think, like, Otter Storm is obviously one thing, but I think, wasn't there, like, a Bat Storm deck? Maybe?
I have not seen that yet, but there's a couple of those effects where if you gain life, then your opponents lose one, and you have the bat that has offspring that has that. So you can have
yep.
2 instances of that, and then there's like another effect of that. So you have like 3 bats attacking, and 3 instances of your opponents get burned for a bunch. So you just like start melting life totals very quickly if all of that comes together. That might be what they're talking about, but I haven't actually seen any of that.
All I just know from like the bits and pieces that I have seen, like, yeah, some of the new standard changes seem like pretty neat from just an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, I'm actually like looking at playing some 60 card maybe. It could be fun. Yeah. Yeah. I also really want a Textless Shark Typhoon, TBH. I think
Okay,
that card
yeah,
looks so
that's a
fucking
fair
sick.
that's a fair reason to try to get in on that. It does look pretty good.
So yeah, I just gotta pick a good deck and then like, I don't know, see about that hashtag grinder life.
Well, if you dive into it, I salute you, because I'm not following you in there.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I do not ask that anybody wade those waters with me.
I've been there. I would not like to go back. I don't think I'm ready to go back to Friday Night Magic yet, if ever. And I can't. Every time I feel like, oh hey, and now it's time for Kristen Emily. Let's go. Let's talk about her.
We should read at least one of these cards that we're talking about. We're fangirling about Dragonhawk. It's Dragonhawk, Fate's Tempest, 5 mana, 5/5, like 3 red. Legendary creature, Bird Dragon, and whenever it enters or attacks, exile the top X cards of your library, or X is the number of creatures you control with power 4 or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. So you just exile cards for your larges and then deal burn damage to your opponents for the ones you don't cast. It's just like, I'm going to draw some cards. I'm going to burn you if I don't cast them. If I do cast them, they're probably larges. We'll beat you down. It's extremely sweet.
It's a bird dragon. Everyone was like, oh, call again, maybe. And then they're like, no, it's just a quad-winged dragon bird.
We don't have any confirmation on that.
Well, true, but
They're
I'm
just
not
very conspicuously
I'm not
answering that question.
I'm not holding my breath, to be honest. I'm just
That's fair.
I'm waiting for people to be disappointed somehow, and then they'll be like, I don't like that. But anyway.
Yeah, I figure if it's actually Kolagon proper, it would be a red blackbird dragon, but who knows? They might have already had that part of the color palette like filled and not wanted to put a red black legendary creature in that slot for like symmetry reasons.
But yeah, I also find it funny that people are like, yeah, this is like a standard constructed dragon, and sure enough,
yeah, you always gotta have a dragon in standard.
Always. Otherwise, what's the freaking point of playing? Like getting shoot, I'm thinking of Stormbreath Dragon from Theros Standard all those years ago.
Oh man, I love that dragon. What an
it's
incredible
a very cool
rune for a
dragon.
trap.
Random ass protection from white, and everyone's like, "Oh no!" And then it just freaking smokes you for your hand.
Control may just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna interact with your hasty dragon," and I'd be like, "Actually, no, you're not. You can't touch it, and now you're dying, and now I'm making it monstrous, burning you for all those cards that you have in your hand."
Thundermaw Hellkite was printed in Magic 2013 core set. Your typical
Love that
5
guy.
mana.
I should play more of that guy.
5 mana 5/5 for flying and haste dragon. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each creature with flying. Your opponent's control tap of those creatures. Play that in your Zagras Thief of Heartbeats deck to give your Thundermaw Death Touch, so all your flying adversaries just poof out of existence.
Oh yeah, your opponents simply do not get to have flyers.
Yeah, Thundermaw as just neat design. Your good old standard 5 mana 5/5 dragon that does something,
I do also really like the Ashmouth Dragon and the Smoldering Egg from one of the Innistrad sets recently. Shout out to Thing in the Ice type designs. One of my favorite designs.
Very cool.
All right, content time for you. What you got?
Oh, right, yeah. I'm just gonna go to Cody and Laz's new episode over on Brew Review. We're talking about Cody's Shanid deck, which kind of I've heard about Shanid on occasion, but like have never really seen a deck built around it.
Sleeper hit. I don't know.
You mean like Sleeper's Scourge? You mean the Sleeper Scourge?
You know, wasn't intending that, but there it is. So if the shoe fits, buy the matching t-shirt.
So 1 red, white, black for a legendary creature human knight. That's a 2/4 with menace. Other legendary creatures you control have menace, and whenever you play a legendary land or cast a legendary spell, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So that's just good value. You can draw 3 cards if you happen to play a legendary land, draw for your turn, and then cast a legendary spell. So that seems pretty great. They spent like over, I think it was like an hour and 45-minute episode, which I thought was like great. Love long form content. Great for my commute to work and working at work. But apparently like Cody's just had a really good time with it, which is always a great feeling hearing about someone having a very positive relationship with a deck. But we also got our respective shout outs that episode, which was a good feeling.
Yeah.
You got called out for your Doctor Who bullshit.
I sure was indeed playing Doctor Who bullshit. Don't even remember who the commanders were, and that's okay, because it doesn't matter.
Well, we got it recorded.
That my commander was the TARDIS, and that's important.
Benoit established the hashtag Devash sweep in all caps, and so Cody is now appropriating it for his own Devash sweep moment that he had over on MTG Lexicon with us, as he set you to 1, put me to 41, and then you died to descend into Avernus, to which then I proceeded to backstab Cody by blowing up the 40/40 horror creature, Phyrexian horror that was made. It's good to be able to be like, wow, hey, here's our recollection of this incident, and then you hear the perspective on the other end of the same incident on a different podcast. Is very funny.
I'm glad that he was also stoked about that being like the game of his life, because it looked like it from across the table. It was
there was some fire stuff going on that game. That the fact that you got by your own favorite card is pretty good. It's pretty funny. So yeah, go check out that episode. As Cody put it, he's like, if Cole was here, he'd call you a fucking idiot. And Laz said, yeah, so it's a good thing he's not here, huh? And I'm like, oh, I oughta. So we're going to be hopefully getting a game.
Oh yeah, I absolutely listened. And was just like, oh yeah? Cole's going to have something to say about that.
Yeah. So what about you?
Read some articles by Kristen Emily at Narukami Night about some post-standard rotation pickups, and Neon Dynasty in particular was stacked with the Channel Lands and the Wandering Emperor. I think she sees play in other formats, so that might like limit how much her price is going to drop. But I don't know, keep an eye on that if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, the entire article, like, it kind of really gives you perspective on just how big Standard was before that they started making these rotation rules and rotation changes and stuff. And it's like, holy smokes. Obviously, Shieldred's still around for Dominaria United, but
her time is coming.
Very soon. Sooner than later, maybe. But yeah, in terms of like mentions in like New Capenna. Great, guess what, everyone? New Capenna might have some stuff dipping in price or being put back in circulation. I don't know, but
yeah, take a look at some Triumphs gamers. I mean, again, those are played in other formats, so I don't know how much they're going to move, but at least keep your eyes on them.
Angel of... Oh, God, what was the black one? Angel of Suffering, like, getting the mention. Like, I just recently put that in a deck.
Yeah, she's sweet. She'll mill you a lot of cards and save you from a lot of damage, and if you can make that work to your advantage, she's incredibly strong. She's also why I keep that anti-fog tech on deck. Don't get caught slipping.
Yep. Yeah, I put that in Radun Hagedun recently. That's felt like a good fit.
Yeah, that's a good fit for that.
And then, I feel like by the time you read one article of hers, another one just shows up out of nowhere. She did another article of the top 5 underrated commanders from Zendikar, like the plane, not just Zendikar the set or the block or whatever. So although I don't think I saw anything that was actually from Zendikar the block, the first one, just even going between Zendikar Rising and Battle for Zendikar, like, pretty good stack of legends. And of course, Lenny's Seagate Air Force got mentioned.
Hell yeah, Seagate Air Force mentioned. So
yeah, Linvala, Shield of Seagate. What a cool card.
My beloved Tabarak's Hope's Demise is from Zendikar. It's my Demon Voltron that's like also a Shadowbone Apostle stack. We got 20 of them.
Just way too many of them, overflowing. But yeah, and this article reminded me of my buddy Chris, who I've mentioned a few times, and he was on episode... we were talking about Is It Pirates on Uncommon Commander all those years ago. He made a Mina and Den burn deck, which involved just like playing lands or returning certain lands to hand to reset for like trample or whatever on the odd occasion that he would tap. Or like put a land back into his hand so he can wheel himself and then like replay another land later.
Hell yeah.
It was a really cool like crackle with power, all this other cool stuff like at the time.
Honestly,
and then
that's
of course
kind of the same principle that my Hugs deck is operating on. Just extra land drops, fireball. So
when you drew that crackle with power the other day when we were playing, I was like, oh god. And then it didn't happen for the longest time, and I was just sitting there like gripping my hands, going white, being like, when's it gonna happen? I don't know. And eventually
it's just like fully clenched, and then I'm like, all right, crackle with power.
I'm like, yeah, okay. But yeah, Zendikar in general, yeah, it does have a lot of really cool legends. But I would encourage everyone to go check out Kristen's articles on these, especially the standard rotation one. Like, just as a cool like look at the last few years of like what the fuck has been going on, and then you're like, oh yeah,
it's cool to get a look at like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened.
So yeah.
And yeah, hashtag Gruul is the future.
Episode title, let's go. And then our buddies Fitz and Prof, they got a new episode out on Casual Sevens. They have Davey F. Jones guesting the hey, gotta go to the Thunderdome to get heckin' murdered. That's where you want to go with Davey F. Jones. Prof managed to sneak away, yank himself away from his Destiny 2 deep dive to edit the episode, but from to quote from him, he's immediately heard the siren song and went back as soon as the episode was done.
That's so funny.
Nothing has changed.
A relatable dude. I stopped playing Magic the Gathering so that I can podcast and then immediately go be like, who's trying to play a game?
Yeah. So the thing I wrote is very silly because I listened to the episode after I wrote this. I wrote, no doubt talking about the banning of Dockside Extortionists, unbanning Prime Time and Emrakul, and how good Valakut, Dark Depths, and Cabal Coffers are, to which I then said, shocking no one, they did say all of that, and then some.
360 no-scoped it.
Very good. However, it was a very fun episode.
Yeah, that was a good time. Check that out, gamers.
That is it for content for this episode. We will now go into decks and games. What you got? What's going on? Did we just spend like the next hour talking about hugs?
Well, I just want to talk about a couple of other things first. The smallest section here is I've been playing a lot of Brawl, TBH.
Fair enough, yeah.
Sometimes
test out some new legends.
Yeah, that, and also sometimes you want to play Magic the Gathering and don't want to put the like energy into interacting with people. Like, sometimes you're staying up for it. So played some Brawl and put together this Vadrok Apex of Thunder, I think. I don't remember what his subtitle is, but he's the Jeskai Ikoria Mythic Rare Elemental Beast and Apex Beast. There we go. That's what those are called. And yeah, we put a bunch of energy cards in the 99 because that is actually the deck didn't start as Vadrok.
Okay.
So I thought it'd be better to synergize with the Jeskai Narset from Ikoria. And so we put the deck together with her as the helm and played some games, and just the worst fucking matchups I'm seeing. Nadus, I'm seeing Golos, I'm seeing Atraxas.
Oh no. Oh no.
So I'm like, okay. Message received. I'm gonna change my commander. And so instead of playing Jeskai Narset, we switched to Vadrok because he was the other Jeskai legend that we had. We could have also used Satya from the Modern Horizons, but we hadn't spent the wild card on crafting that one yet.
Oh, but I know that you would be all on board with that. You're like, this is the energy Shadow Clone deck. Let's go.
Well, I actually have him now, and he's just in the 99 because I'm kind of enamored of the way that Vadrok lets you be uniquely rude.
Phil, aka Neo Royal, Davey F. Jones' partner, has had a Vadrok deck that was secretly a what is that dwarf lady from Call Time?
Magda.
It was secretly a Magda deck, and he got the Vadrok altered to have Magda riding Vadrok.
That's adorable.
So it was very funny, but also was just a super nasty little deck. I miss playing with that guy. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, a lot of the times when you see Vadrok in the wild, it's a graveyard mutate storm combo deck. And they do a lot of casting impulse draw spells and rituals. In particular, Yeska's Will, if they can hit that and just cast that repeatedly, then they can put together a win from bouncing Vadrok back to their hand and repeated mutates and casts. Because let's actually read the card here. Vadrok, Apex of Thunder. You can regular cast him for blue, red, white. He's a legendary creature, elemental dinosaur cat, and a 3/3 with flying and first strike. The mutate, you can cast him for 1, a hybrid white-blue, and red-red. And whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So you don't have to exile it. It doesn't say that anywhere on the card. So you get to just repeatedly cast those things from your graveyard, which lets me do incredibly rude maneuvers like cast Static Prison, which is an enchantment for 1 white. It's basically an energy O-ring, and you get to keep the thing O-ringed if you pay 1 energy.
Oh, yeah, this card. Yeah. Modern
Horizons 3. Or something.
Okay. That is pretty gross.
At the beginning of your first main phase, sacrifice Static Prison unless you pay 1 energy, and when it enters, you exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves, and you get 2 energy. So even if you're not an energy deck, this is just like fine temporary removal. You can keep a thing gone for 2 turns, which in Commanders kind of a
super
long
huge
time, actually.
Well, if we're talking about Brawl, like in 1v1, that is a major tempo swing.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So if I don't care about the thing that I'm sending to hell having their enter the battlefield ability happen, then I can simply sacrifice the Static Prison in my pre-combat main phase rather than paying for it, then mutate Vadrok and cast that again from my graveyard and put the thing back in prison. Or I can cast Revoke Existence, which is this sorcery from Theros Beyond Death for 1 and a white that exiles target artifact or enchantment. And Vadrok just lets you recast that from your graveyard every time you mutate. So all of my opponent's nice trinkets and doodads and nice things are just sent to hell forever.
I'm just thinking of, I don't know what the original footage of but it's just some dude falling into, like, a giant, like, chasm, and it's usually accompanied with, like, oh god, maybe I'm thinking of Kirby being thrown into, like, a giant chasm. He just goes, what? It just disappears, and I don't know where I'm going with that, but that's just what I'm thinking of every time you're like, yeah, I cast you into hell, and they're like, what? And just disappear.
Yeah, that's exactly what that looks like. They just get dragged to hell.
You're in for a bad time. All right.
So yeah, we're playing a lot of Brawl and Vadrok energy. That's that. The other thing that we're doing is playing Bellows Precon. Wow. What if all my heavy air quotes do nothing enchantments were also indestructible beaters that draw cards and dodge creature removal off turn? It's an exciting development in the archetype of fucked up ramp deck.
No kidding. So Bellow Bard of the Brambles is 1 red and a green for 3/3 Raccoon Bard. I know some people are like, why weren't the raccoons in Golgari? And I'm like, no, this is way better. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact and non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater becomes a 4/4 elemental creature token, or elemental creature in addition to its other types, and has indestructible haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's just overwhelming value.
It is extremely strong, actually. You can just cast a Berserker's Onslaught, have that enter the battlefield, trigger your Garrett's Uprising.
That's so fucked!
You can cast your, what is that? The Unnatural Growth. Both of these are in the Precon, BT dubs. As is Garrett's Uprising. So all of that enters. They're all ferocious creatures, so you draw cards when they enter for Garrett's Uprising, or any of those things that are like draw when creature power 4 or greater enters the battlefield. There's a new one in Thunder Junction that does that, and also has plot or whatever. So that's cool. There's this enchantment, Thickest in the Thicket, which is just
it's such a dumb card.
Naming, and the art is so sick. There's these raccoons and squirrels, and they're lifting weights. They've got nuts tied to the ends
they got nuts tied to the sticks.
Shredded. So when this guy enters, you put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is that creature's power, functionally doubling it permanently. And at the beginning of your end step, draw 2 cards if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for the greatest power. And the flavor text, no pain, no fame. Fucking incredible.
Was it you or Gabe who got to play that the other night?
I got to play it the other night. I put it on Hugs, I think, and just like doubled his power.
Oh, yeah. No, it was Hugs. Okay, yeah. It's gross.
I've also played that in the Precon, of course, and I forget what exactly we ended up putting the counters on, but every time... Oh, no, it was this fucking Grizzly. What is that guy? Evercoat or something?
Was it from this set?
Yes, Evercoat Ursine. It's a 6/5 elemental bear with trample for 4 and a green, and it has Hideaway 3, Hideaway 3.
What the fuck?
And whenever Evercoat Ursine deals combat damage to a player, if there are cards exiled with it, you may play one of them without paying its mana cost.
That's messed up.
So I just made this guy 12 power with +1/+1 counters.
This set's kind of silly.
Yeah, this bear gets in for combat damage and casts a free spell, and that's never been bad. So if you're a green mage, maybe consider that.
Well, especially if you want it in your red-green X Exile Matters deck.
Yeah, you're casting a spell from exile, you're getting a big guy, which red-green is, like, historically been very interested in.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah, I do need to sit down and really take a look at this set. I've only kind of just got, like, I still only have a surface view, but, yeah, some of these things are slipping under my radar. This thing's pretty silly.
I think you gotta just get in there and play some of the precons or put together a deck with some of the cards or something. Do like a Moxfield brew and just like play that in a game, whatever.
Or I could
type
just
it
play
in through
Brawl.
OBS. Or yeah, you can play Brawl, but then there's the whole like wild cards thing. You have to figure that out.
Well, yeah, true. I mean,
Which is why I recommend just building
nah,
something
but you
on
see,
Moxfield
here's what you do, Quinn. Here's what you do. You play Brawl, and you play Brawl decks for your coins for your dailies or whatever, and then you use those coins to buy Bloomburrow packs, and then you open Bloomburrow packs and be like, cool, that's a sick new legend. Let me build a deck around that, and then you repeat the cycle until you get bored of Arena.
That is actually what started this whole Hugs obsession. I opened the Bloomburrow packs that you get gifted upon entering Bloomburrow, and there was Hugs Grizzly Guardian, and I was like, finally, I can see what this 5/5 with Trample is all about. We can talk about that later. I just want to call out a couple more cards that are in the Gruul precon. Alchemist Talent is particularly fucked up. It's this class that, like, enters the battlefield and makes some tapped treasures, and then you can level it up for 1 in a red to have treasures you control get tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. And then the last level for 4 in a red, whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, this class deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to each opponent. So now your fucked up ramp deck actually has like a win condition that's not just like wheel spinning and making more treasures. I'm looking directly at Prosper Mages.
Prosper!
Let's get there.
I think the classes this set are probably one of the things I am most excited about in general.
They are doing some incredibly sick things in the design lab with those. Really cool technology. I think the Fisher's talent that like makes a fish token and then
It becomes a shark and then an
makes a
octopus
shark
or something.
and then replaces that with an octopus, and it's just an extremely cute interaction with Shark Typhoon that like if you would make a shark token from that, you make the octopus instead.
Yeah, and then you put them all in the same deck, and then you're... Yeah, I definitely think... I'm glad it's not a monocolor one. Like, that the fact... Like, yes, it's Simic bullshit, but at least, like, it's only stuck in Simic bullshit X decks, and then that way you don't expect to just arbitrarily see fish tokens become sharks, like, all the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'll be kind of cool to see. It's reasonably difficult to put together. You have to level up the class all the way to make that interaction happen, and land Shark Typhoon, which is like a 6 mana enchantment. So you're putting in the work if you make all of that happen. Another card, Rolling Hamsphere. It is a 7 mana artifact vehicle 4/4, and it gets +1/+1 for each hamster you control. And whenever it attacks, you make 3 1/1 red hamster creature tokens, then it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of hamsters you control, and it has crew 3. This shit ends games from what I've seen, and I would like to see more of it, especially if you're the type of gamer who plays like token doublers or whatever. This guy attacks and you make 6 of those guys instead, and then deals 6 damage to any target. Seems pretty decent.
You know, the puns are once again on fire. I just find it funny that they're a little more acceptable than whatever was going on in Thunder Junction.
Nah, I like all that shit.
Okay.
I am exactly the target audience for a lot of what Magic the Gathering is doing recently. So, sorry, and also you're welcome. Last card is going to be Wild Seer Scouring Maw. This guy's a 3 and a red and a green for legendary creature Elemental Wolf, a 6/6 with trample, and enchantment spells you cast from your hand have Cascade.
Yep.
That's it.
That's great. That's all you need. That's all you need to hear.
You need. The Gruul Enchantress deck of your dreams is right there, gamers. You could be playing Aura Voltron with Wild Seer and getting more card per card.
Hold on. All right, hear me out.
Yeah.
So, you play Maelstrom Wanderer.
All right.
But you play every single background you can cram into the deck.
All right.
and you put this guy in
Okay.
with passionate archaeologist. And you just cascade yourself into just absolutely blasting someone with all your sick backgrounds that also happen to exile more cards with, like, Tavern Brawler and
Make it a
makes
large
Maelstrom
with
Wielder
the Raised by
unblockable.
Giants.
Yeah, Raised by Giants, like the whole shebang, right? And, like, you're also cascading from casting your enchantments, and yeah, I don't know, it's a thing.
Okay.
It's a
Maelstrom
thing.
Wanderer Cascade backgrounds. Get that on my desk in 2 weeks.
I'll do you one better. I'll do Yidris, Maelstrom Wielder.
Well, that's just too easy.
Okay, I know. I already have the deck on my shelf. I don't wanna hear
You
it.
have Yidris backgrounds already?
I've had it for a while. It used to be Elmar and Cecily.
Why do I feel like I've never seen this?
Because it's one of those cards that needs to stay on the shelf sometimes.
Oh, okay. It is Yidris.
You know, some people see Idris and they're like, oh no, and then they see Raised by Giants and they're like, oh no!
You know what? Those are entirely sane and understandable reactions. I understand exactly where they're coming from.
And then make Yidris unblockable with, like, Sorko Sailor, yeah. I do love that deck.
That sounds fucked.
Yeah. I'll send you the list.
Yeah, I want to see that. All right, tell me about some decks that you've got or some games that you've played.
I do have I think my non-hugs category, like, maybe some of my stuff, like, compares, but let me just kind of skim through some stuff pretty quickly. As everyone knows, I've been trying to get my clue fill with the likes of Piper and Ezram and Eisenhorn. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll make an Esper one. But then my friend Dan was like, hey, so here's this Elmar and Hargild clue deck. And I'm like, you motherfucker. I can't believe you did this to me. In front of my salad? Really? But anyway, so it's the fact that Elmar makes clues on your second casting of a spell. Hargild can tap to add 2 colorless to use on your clue tokens. While you are missing out on what Eisenhorn could theoretically contribute, Piper does that by herself, and you also have Ezram as part of that suite, so that just seems super cool. You could add Reckless Fireweaver. You could
also
add
get the Doctor Who lesbians.
Yes, as I currently have in a wish list at my local store.
Nice.
So like, I'm thinking that if, depending on what my relationship is with my 4-color Aragorn deck, that might be the next step of getting Jenny Flint and Madame Vastra in an Elmar Hargild deck, just in the Fugitive Doctor and all that cool stuff, just to see, like, what I can do with it, because 4-color clues sounds pretty neat.
So I had
also
a brew together that was pretty close to that. It was just like called a Dr. Light episode because we had all of the clues support set from that, but no doctors. Forgot about the WinCons. I think the technology has advanced significantly since then.
I'm excited to put the evidence one. See, I talk about all these cards. Armed with proof, and also the angel that gives all your clues exalted.
Oh, I was just posting about, well, not just posting about that.
It's the one that Ludi we talked about with Ludi.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about, man.
There's so many cards, Quinn. How could we ever keep up with everything?
Yeah, you try, but then you
Merchant of Truth. There we go.
There it is. Oh goodness.
But yeah, it all seems cool. But yeah, the Almar Cecily was the background deck at one point. despite the fact that none of it really synergized with each other. And I really wish that one of the other Friends Forever cards was like just blue-black. I don't know how that would work, but I just wanted that. But anyway, so
I get it.
I'm at my clue deck of my dreams, my 5-color clue deck of my dreams. That seemed pretty cool. I've recently been updating my Imskir deck because I just kind of realized that there was a major design flaw, is that I was putting in all this super sick, awesome equipment, but I didn't really have ways of just moving the equipment where it needed to go. So I've added more reconfigure equipment creatures to the Imskir deck, and I've also added Volshock Battlemaster, Kazul's Toll Collector, and Brass Squire to the deck.
Nice.
To make... Imskir can be super duper fucked up, but my god, when you're just being like, I can only put one equipment on this guy at a time, feels bad. You know, cast your commander for 2, and you're like, I have a Hero's Blade go on.
Yeah, Hero's Blade auto-equips, and that's about it.
And then I'm like, I guess I can maybe put Lizard Blades on, or, you know, like, the list is developing. I think there is a lot of cool tech in here, but sometimes I'm just like, man, where's the Trample? Where's the Menace?
It'd be so sick to just cast an instant and have all of these things auto-equip. Man, I miss Boros.
Yeah, well, exactly, right. So, I think these will help out compared to, like, some of my original initial takes on the deck. But some of my recent games have been pretty good overall, and I've been seeing Imskir hit the battlefield and everyone being like, oh, geez. And then I'm like, uh-oh, here he comes. And they're like, damn, he really do just be a 2-mana 5/5 sometimes.
Well, that's good to hear. I know you were having some trouble with him initially, so I'm glad to see that the changes that you made initially have been paying off and the deck is operating more smoothly. It's only up from here.
And because of the equipment, the increase of equipment, and let me just triple check here on, do I make treasure tokens in this deck? I do. I added a card into this deck because of Lenny partially. Because there's that Echoing Truths card.
Oh. That
bounces. And there's a red equivalent called Echoing Ruin. It's 1 in a red, and it says destroy target artifact and artifacts that have that share the name with the artifact. Mm-hmm. So in this crazy world of soul rings and, I don't know, Wayfarer's Baubles, maybe Hero's Blades, you know, if you squint here and there, you can just, like, target your own stuff. And because everyone else would rather, like, sacrifice it in the response, you're like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to blow this thing up. And if anyone happens to share the name, that gets blown up too. So it just felt like kind of a neat, cheeky inclusion to put on the list, just to see what would happen as sort of like an emergency.
Yeah, I think that's pretty deuce. You can also, if you're going to point it at your own stuff, you can be a sicko and point it at your own treasure token and blow them all up.
Well, exactly my mentality.
Usually people will be like, oh, but they'll just sacrifice the treasures in response, and you're forgetting, gamer, it says anything, so I can point it at my own. It doesn't have to be controlled by an opponent's.
So obviously it's like, you know, I could probably put more treasure making stuff in the deck to kind of make that, like, pay off a little bit more. And I'm still fiddling with the deck, so I'm sure I will. But I do like the changes I've made recently, and hoping to get some more games in with that really soon, because I think I've hit my recent, like, quota of Radun Hagadoon shenanigans on, like, Esper, the Esper equipment angle.
I'm about to tell you can't use shenanigans in an Esper deck.
That's God, this is not the Legendary Creature podcast. We don't need to do that. Anyway.
I do that everywhere, dude. I've been doing that since before them, actually.
Oh, wow.
Well, rather, since before I knew about them. They've probably been doing that for the same length of time, or probably even longer. Well, obviously longer, because they've been playing Magic longer, but still.
Mm-hmm. At least since before they were doing the podcast in 2017.
As long as I've known people to be using shenanigans, and as long as I've known shenanigans to be
as a big user of shenanigans. But yeah, is there anything else I can quickly skim over before handing the reins back to you? I mean, like, all right, let's talk about Rodun Hagadoon, I guess.
Yeah,
just
let's fucking talk about him, because I think the story and also the fucking huge asterisks.
You can't put you could put more asterisks, but oh my god, this whole bit.
Can't believe we all missed that. All right, get into it.
Be me, right? You're playing Rodun Hagadoon for the I don't know, with it like I swear I've been playing it about like 20 times ever since I made this thing. Like
whatever, dude, you got to get those reps in.
It's so fun. It's really fun to play this thing. How I've managed to get away with all the things that I've gotten away with, I don't know, but also, Rodun Hagadoon just poofing himself out of existence to re-enter and regain hexproof is one really big contributor to this. It's the trickiest I've ever been. The payoffs have been great. So, what happens when you repeatedly attack with a very large Rodun Hagadoon equipped with a Mask of the Schemer, and no one just...
I play Rexiel sometimes.
Oh, yeah, right. So, my initial thought was, because that's just what we all thought, that you lose the game when you draw your whole library, when you've been slowly, like, one-shotting people over time. Like, you're like, cool, I go to attack you.
You're just out here like, connive 9, connive 20, connive 40.
And then you're like, oh, wait, how many cards do I have left? Connive dead. However...
And we're all just like, yeah, dude, you connived yourself to death. Holy shit. Except in that stack of equipment... there was a fucking horse.
There was not just any horse. And it's hard to say it's a horse, because it's not a horse, it's a Kirin, to be specific.
It sure is a Kirin, but it's shaped like a horse for sure.
It looks like a horse. Cloudsteel Kirin was one of my recent additions to the list. Because it gives the equipped creature flying, but it also says your opponents can't win the game and you can't lose the game.
Bro, you should have been a lich, and we all missed it.
We were like, oh man, that's a shame, but also it was like pretty late. But
it was pretty late in our defense.
And the unfortunate part was, because of just how I had everything presented, I just stacked all the equipment together and just said, cool, whatever, despite the fact that I put the frickin' Kirin onto him to finish someone off, and it was out there, readable to everyone to see, and it was just like, God, I do not play with this card enough to like
yeah, I just
register
looked at a picture that you posted of your board state this morning and saw the fraction of the art of the Kirin in that pile, and just it hit me. It was just like the bass drop damage, just like oh no.
The everything goes grayscale, slows down, and you're like,
you should have still been alive.
I could have fucking won that game.
You absolutely could have won that game with 0 cards in library. I don't think I had interaction for a Kirin.
But the two realities of that situation are thus. Mask of the Schemer slaps.
100%.
2, it pays 2 to unequip it to put it on something else that you're not attacking with. Because when you do Mask of the Schemer with basically no restrictions repeatedly, like several turns in a row, you're like, I'm getting really sick and tired of drawing and discarding all these cards.
But I thought you wanted to touch cards, gamer.
I mean, at the time it was pretty good, but like I think I was at like 2 cards in hand, and it was just tough enough to try to keep the 2 cards in hand that were like, I'm like, cool, I'm bringing back all these equipment and making all these assassins. But yeah, so Mask of the Schemer is lesson 1, and lesson 2 is read your fucking cards like Cloudsteel Kirin that you put in the deck specifically to have flying and to prevent yourself from losing the game.
100%. Also, every time I see a large quantity of connive, I think about building the Rafine deck from Standard but ported to EDH.
I do have Rafine in the deck.
Of course, she's sick.
But yeah, so the final mention for this, because I think this was a little bit more of a quick and easy Rodun Hagadoon bit, was that I put in Andril Narsil. I'm probably mispronouncing this. I'm not a Lord of the Rings nerd. I don't give a shit.
It's close enough for government work. You're fine. Narsil Reforged.
Narsil Reforged, 2 mana legendary artifact equipment with equip for 3. It has Ascend, so if you have 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, you put a +1 counter on each creature you control. If you have the City's Blessing, put 2 +1 counters on each creature you control instead. So, when you're making your large army of assassins, and they also happen to be growing in power over time, and maybe, just maybe, you're not having Radun Hagadoon cease from existence to reappear behind a tree to shove an axe in your neck. You just have a large army in Esper, and you're like, I don't even need to bring out Arna Kennerud. Like, it doesn't matter. I had one game with Andoril out, and it was so easy to hit City's Blessing in Commander.
Dude, this Assassin's tokens, all of the lands, the
equipment,
and trinkets. You can absolutely hit the City's Blessing, no problem.
So, yeah, it has been a sick edition. I got another one for Ishin. I will be putting that in there soon with all my 1 and 2 mana little dinky creatures that when they attack, each opponent loses a life. Coming to a commander table near you soon.
I think that'll go hard in that deck. I fucking have one in a box. I should just find a deck for it. I don't know where it goes.
So yeah, that's it for me for now. What's do we do the hug? Do we do the hugs now?
We just fucking spend the rest of this on hugs discourse. Not like discourse.
What hugs discourse is there? Hugs is just sick.
I mean discourse in the like more traditional sense of the word, and like a conversation between you and me about hugs.
Is that the term?
Rather than the like.
Oh, I guess it is. Huh.
Yeah, it has this connotation from the way that we use it on Magic Twitter, but it is just like a conversation.
So hugs is cool.
Yeah, so y'all remember that spell Commune with Lava from Cons of Turkey?
Mm-hmm.
It's a X red, and you exile the top X cards of your library, and you can play them until the end of your next turn, and it's an instant.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if you had a Commune with Lava, except you also had an Exploration stapled to it, and also it was a 5/5 with Trample, and you could put it in the command zone?
So that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, that is my beloved Hugs Grizzly Guardian for X red, green, legendary creature, Badger Warrior, 5/5 Trample. When he enters, exile the top X cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. What an open-ended design. I have no idea what you're supposed to be doing with this card initially. And so, like we talked about at the beginning, I fucking got this thing on Arena, and so we were like, all right, Brawl deck, we'll play the Badger, we'll play Haymakers and extra land drops. Is this anything?
Yeah,
as it turns out, gamers, it's everything. And the feeling of just like tapping all of my mana, casting this large, and having him enter the battlefield and just like Super Saiyan power up as he rips cards off of my library so that I can play them. He's so fucking cool. And immediately after falling in love with him on Arena, I put together a list on Moxfield, leaning into Devotion and Expend to sort of like give us a direction rather than just like pulling from a pool of available cards like I was building on with Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a personalized bespoke theme. So yeah, we were like extra land drops, things with lots of pips, devotion payoffs, and all of the good cards that say expend.
Yeah.
And it slaps. The Expend Commander Moira Trash Technician is probably one of the best cards in the deck. I refer to her as my like lieutenant, even though that's not like printed on the card anywhere and is an actual mechanic.
But it might as well be, functionally.
Yeah, she might as well be my fucking lieutenant. She's 1 red and a green for a legendary creature, Raccoon Warrior, 2/4. And at the beginning of your first main phase, add a red or green for each raccoon you control. And whenever you expend 4, you gain 3 life. And whenever you expend 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. The other expend cards that matter are also raccoons, so that just feeds into this very well. We've got a cool Mana Dork raccoon that also, like, when you expend 8, you get to return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand.
I saw that one on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah, I was playing it in a game. My things were getting removed. I was just playing my normal game plan then and putting the things that they had removed back in my hand so that I could cast them again. And they're just like, all right, that guy needs to go. You have to stop looping these creatures. And so they spent removal on my harmless little 2 mana 1/3, I think he is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's really strong. Moira, though, draws a bunch of cards. You are kept in the game with her life gain. It feels like just like a really strong 3-drop mana rock for me, basically, that also draws cards like she's incredible and doesn't die to bolt.
Yes, yeah, that is true. Yeah, no, I don't know how many times a lightning bolt worth of damage just fucks up the math for a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. So other cool things that we put in the deck, Hugs gives us extra land drops, so I wanted to make sure I'd be able to hit my extra land drops consistently. So we grabbed a lot of future sight effects, things that let me look at the top of my library and play lands from the top of my library. Mm-hmm. And some other...
Augur of Autumns.
Yeah, we have that Augur of Autumn in there. We've got the Mina and Den Wildborn, like we talked about. There's the Dryad of the Elysian Grove, who's not a future sight, but lets me play extra lands. And we have Courser of Krufix, who is a future sight, but doesn't let me play extra lands. So, like, there's a couple of them that are, like, half of the role that we need it to be, and a couple of them that are just, like, you can look at the top of the library and play an extra land. That's, like, ideal. Oracle of Moldiah, I think, is the poster child for that. We have that in there. And so sometimes I'm at, like, where I'm playing 3-4 lands a turn. I'm just ripping lands off the top of my library, making sure that I'm hitting all of those land drops that I have available. I have 40 lands in the deck because I'm extremely passionate about hitting all of those land drops.
Well, considering what I saw the other day when we were playing, that's probably the appropriate number, because it seemed like you had half of that amount out by the time we hit, like, endgame.
Yeah, by the time that we were at endgame, I was at, like, 18, 19 lands or something like that. Was that the game with Lumra? That's maybe. I can't remember if that was y'all or somewhere else. I've been playing a lot of Hugs, and man, that's a high impact card in the deck, actually. Lumra, Bellow of the Woods. It's 6 mana for a legendary creature, Elemental Bear, who's a star with vigilance and reach, and power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. So, like, Marrow Sorcerer, if you're familiar with those cards. Mm-hmm. Lumra's one of them. The extra fucked up thing, though, is when Lumra enters the battlefield, or just says enters actually on the card now. When Lumra enters, mill 4 cards, then return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And so if you have any kind of, like, fetches or fabled passages, like that kind of thing, which I did in this deck because I wanted to make sure that Lumra would have stuff to bring back beyond things that I needed to discard or whatever, we get all those extra land drops, and Lumra becomes a fucking massive threat with vigilance and reach, so, like, you're not getting through here.
Yeah, I've been eyeballing some of my, like, green decks recently, and it's just, you know, for all the discussions of, like, ramping in non-green colors and everything. It's just like nothing does beat what green is good at, and that's just shitting lands out on the battlefield, and just capitalizing off of it.
100%. Mom said it was my turn on the green mage bullshit, and I aim to capitalize.
You are so deep in it.
And truly, I'm so deep in it. So our card advantage package is just like impulse draw equal to power, and the X on hugs.
Don't kill hugs. Why? Because Quinn will just recast hugs, and you're just in the corner like, yeah.
And genuinely, I do have people fucking sweating whether or not they remove hugs or block hugs in a way that he'll die, because, like, he's a large. He's fucking coming for you. I will come and damage you out of the game. But also, if you blow him up, I'm just going to cast him again and draw 3 more cards.
You know what? I had this thought, I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, because you've just been all up in hugs, right? And I'm like, you know what? Hugs reminds me of Golos.
Yeah, the extra land drop does kind of let you pay for his commander tax.
The difference being is that you're stuck in Gruul, and Golos just enabled you.
You're stuck in Gruul, and you have to have drawn the card, whereas Golos will pull it out of your library.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I just feel as if, like, you don't really care so much if you get the, if you're able to get enough resources out to recast hugs again and then just do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look at more cards. We're gonna maybe hate you again with my large.
I highly anticipate it.
We're on fight spells, and on card draw equals power. There's a new one that I want to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Season of Gathering. There we go.
Isn't that the red spell?
No, the red spell is Season of the Bold, which I'm looking at. I haven't tried yet, but it is not as interesting to me as Season of Gathering in this case. So we'll maybe look at Season of the Bold for a different deck, but for this one in particular, we've got a 6 mana sorcery, so 4 green, but you're going to play that on turn 4 because you're a green mage. You choose up to 5 paws worth of modes, and you may choose the same mode more than once. For 1 paw, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, and it gains vigilance and trample until end of turn. For 2 paws, you choose artifact or enchantment and destroy all permanents of the chosen type. And for 3 paws, you can draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So a lot of times, if the board doesn't need wiping, the modes that I'll choose are like 1, 1, and 3. So I put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature, or spread those out however I want to give things vigilance and trample, and then draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures that I control. It feels extremely good to take hugs from a 5/5 to a 7/7 with vigilance, and then draw 7 cards because he's the biggest.
I mean, when it comes to these types of draw effects that doesn't care, because it's not targeted, you're like, cool. And I think we had that situation the other night. I think we were playing with Brandon, and Brandon was like,
yeah, he chaos warped hugs in response to my Season of Gathering and didn't fully process that it wasn't a targeted spell. So I ended up flipping into something that was larger or the same size as hugs, and ended up drawing the same or more. And he's just like, well, that's not how I wanted that to go at all.
Yeah, unfortunately not how that card works, because that is so funny, right? About how these types of effects test people's knowledge of, like, where they're like, I think I was looking at the card recently today because I was swapping some stuff out, but Soul's Majesty is a 5 mana green spell that, like, you target a creature and draw cards equal to its power. But obviously, like, if someone just yoinks it away, then, like, you don't get the card draw, which fucking sucks.
Yep,
but that's kind of like the reality of how green has changed and power creep has happened, where now it's just like, oh no, you got rid of hugs anyway. It's like, I got this other thing that's also very big.
And And we're still going to draw those cards. But also, I think this spell is quite a bit more expensive than the
yeah, because, like, if we're thinking of, like, Return of the Wild Speaker for 5 versus, like, paying 6 mana, you know?
Mm-hmm. I do really like Return of the Wild Speaker, and it's the same sort of, like, doesn't target, just the power of the biggest non-human you control.
But yeah, Season of the Gathering, yeah, I freaking eyeballed this card, and then it was just one of those things that just... I haven't been on green in such a long time.
Yeah, I haven't either. It's exciting looking at this and like, wow, the
green's got cool
technology.
Stuff. Yeah, it's gotten a lot better over time for green for sure.
So the big question is, hang on. Before we answer the big question, we got to talk about the rest of these vegetables. Removal, I'm playing fight spells and enchantment interaction. I'm always saying that green mages need to simply punch the offending creature with their biggest creatures. Or with their bigger creatures. And I'm putting my deck slots where my mouth is. So I'm playing those cards that say my creature who is bigger will simply punch your smaller creature.
So hello everyone, and meet Kogla the Titan Ape.
Yes.
Just fucking
Kogla,
punch you
in king.
Just punch you in the face, and then you have to deal with it. And yeah, Rona's Fight Club. I forgot about that deck.
Yeah, that's a real deck.
That is the deck. Kogla's in that deck. So is Primal Might and all that other fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'm playing Primal Might. This one is a punch rather than a fight, but Horrific Assault. It's 1 green sorcery from the new Modern Horizons, and target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. If you control an Eldrazi, you gain 3 life. I don't think we'll ever control an Eldrazi.
I just think that of all the prey upon pluses that we have available, it's just the fact that it's just the bite equivalent that also could target a planeswalker on top of it.
Like, yeah, I like that it can punch a planeswalker. I really like this extremely sick Justine Jones piece with like this werewolf leaping, like not just a werewolf, an Emrakul infected werewolf. So it's like an Eldrazi werewolf that's like attacking one of those like mages from Thraben with the Avacyn's collar symbol.
Yeah, I need to also... I think this one also flew under my radar for Ronus because I've been kind of on and off with that deck. So that is also... that's the thing. Now I'm just going on another tangent. Yeah, again, like you said, the technology is getting better,
mm-hmm.
and kind of maybe what gets like left behind is not as applicable anymore, because like there's a green dragon from Dragons of Tarkir that says whenever creatures you control fight at the end step, they get 2+1 counters on them. But Fobri is a regent. But the problem, of course, is like, well, it's a 7 mana 4/5 that when it enters, it fights, and then it gets 2+1 counters and becomes a 6/7, and like continues the fight train. But as the quote unquote green technology has changed, biting be like the bite equivalent if you choose like rabid bite versus prey upon or whatever, like
ram through.
You could ram through, like, you can now save your creature from anything that comes back to it, because people will be like, oh, I got Death Touch. You don't have to worry about that now. So you're more likely and more incentivized to play those spells. So yeah, that's just my tangent, because I'm thinking about the Ronus Fight Club deck, and that is the nuance that sometimes allows me to, like, have a card make the cut or not.
Mm-hmm. It's just like, is this going to be a fight or a bite? I think the bite spells are more highly valued. Personally, I wanted to have mana sinks, so Primal Might is an X spell that gives a thing +X/+X and fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Just a place to put all that mana, and Hugs has trample, so if I target him with that, then we're looking at like potentially lethal commander damage just from punch use. Speaking of
hug
payoffs,
you to death.
We can get to that section now. We have devotion payoffs in the form of Klothys' Design, which is a 5 and a green sorcery that says creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. Hugs has 2 green symbols in his mana cost and 2 red symbols, so I was like, this is just like an easy 2 devotion to either of those colors, or 4 in the cases of Clothis and Xenagos, who are both in the deck. PT dubs, Clothis, God of Destiny, and Xenagos, God of Rohls.
I'm shocked. Can't believe it.
They're just incredibly powerful Gruul cards. You have Graveyard Hate on the form of Clothis, as well as Ramp if you're hitting lands from graveyards, but I'm not. I'm trying to... She's the God of Destiny for a reason. We're advancing the game state meaningfully via the reduction of life totals.
You said the thing. Let's go.
Another one of my payoffs is World Soul's Rage. I wanted to play this burn spell because it was in the Teamer Analyst standard deck, and I think the appeal of just like a Gruul fireball that puts lands onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard is extremely cool, and the art on it is sick, which the art, genuinely a consideration.
I have been eyeballing that spell since Murders at Carla Manor. And I just can never, like, my store can just never seem to have it in stock. And it just kills me because I'm like, this thing is just so sick.
Yeah, if you can get one of those on your hands, I think that's really cool. Especially if you're the kind of gamer who has a lot of fetch lands, or you're building the lands deck that has a bunch of lands in its graveyard because of what it's doing. Pick that up. Our other payoffs are like Crackle with Power and Electro Dominance. I've actually been playing a lot of Electro Dominance as less of a end the game spell and more of as a mid-range removal, or just like cut one person's life total who's been gaining life in half.
And then also happen to cast something else on top of it.
Yeah, the cool thing that Electro Dominance is it deals X damage to any target, and you may cast a spell with mana value X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So I usually like to try and cast something that's going to be hugely impactful, something that I shouldn't also get in addition to my burn spell, and so I try and make that something like 5 or more. I think the last time that I cast Electro Dominance and then the Season of Growth off of that.
Shit.
Season of Gathering, that's the title. Season of Growth is a different enchantment. But yeah, I did that one time. I think I've also cast some of these cool creatures off of that. I think Sunspine Lynx I actually got off of an Electro Dominance once. And Sunspine Lynx, my beloved, 2 red for a 5/4 elemental cat who says players can't gain life, damage can't be prevented, and when Sunspine Lynx enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. It's fucking music to my ears. I told you.
You know what? I love cats, but I don't love that cat.
You don't need life gain.
I didn't need life gain that game. I just wanted it gone.
Yeah, I bet. Everybody wants the cat gone. And I'm like, no. She's not leaving. I'm going to regrowth her. I'm going to recast her again, and we're going to get that ETB again. Enjoy. I'm also thinking about like Shadow Clone technology as a finisher for the deck, because I have the Sunspine Lynx that we talked about, but also one of my devotion payoffs is Fanatic of Mogus. And when that enters the battlefield, it deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. I can usually get that up to like 6 or 7, but it's just not enough, I'm finding. And
unless you had extra bodies for it. I mean, hey, we did lose to Cody the other week for that exact reason.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm saying, though. He shadow cloned it, so there were more Fanatics of Mogus. And so if I had, like, Ortheon, Hero of Lavabrink, who has that stupid fucking ability for, like, 6 red, like, I can do that. I can get to that amount of mana. I can make a bunch of Fanatic of Mogus or a bunch of Sunspine Lynx and just burn people out with that.
This deck scares me.
So I need to find a slot for that guy. I don't have a slot for Ortheon in here yet, but I'm thinking someone's gotta go, because we'll figure that out.
Again, I keep referencing these games that we've had recently, but like the Fanatic of Mogus and the cat angle, especially by dealing damage equal to the number of like non-basics you have, like is such a valid win condition nowadays, just because of how greedy people's mana bases can be.
Yeah, I was dealing 9 with the Sunspine Lynx the other day. I actually did kill someone with it. Benoit was on a deck that had just a lot of triumphs. It was a 5-color Omnath deck, actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got the life totals down low, played the Sunspine Links, got his ass.
Yeah, I've recently been looking through a bunch of deck lists, and I'm like, okay, so 50-ish%, like if I'm in two color, I'm like, oh yeah, 50-ish% of my mana base are basics. Okay, good. But the minute I start seeing that number creep lower and lower, my fear of encountering like these price of progress equivalent effects, I'm like, oh fuck, if one of these hits me in like my Ishin deck, for example, I'm just like smoked. It's so bad.
Yeah, it's tough out there. You play 3 colors, you get access to all of these effects, and also it's a little more difficult to do the fixing. So you play these non-basics, and then I get you.
Oh. So, what other things do you have in this deck that is super cool and awesome?
We finished games off with those ways, but I just added 2 new mana sinks because I wasn't always finding them, like just my burn spells. So I added the red and green creature lands from Dungeons and Dragons, the Den of the Bugbear and the Lair of the Hydra.
Yeah, the Bugbear one's super cool because you can activate it numerous times to replicate the token effect.
You just smash the button as many times as you want, and then when it attacks, it'll make a 1/1 for all of the activations that you did. So if you have big mana, that's a good place to put it. And the other good places to put it are Kessig Wolf Run, which I've absolutely ended lives with.
Yeah, as it is meant to.
Mm-hmm. And then the Lair of the Hydra, you can actually like X in a green, and you make the thing an XX.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah,
those lines
do not all of that in there. It's sweet.
Also notice that you said you have Nylea on the list. It's the first one? Like the first version?
Yeah, the very first Nylea, who gives your creatures trample and... Oh, no, both Nyleas, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think I was talking about Nylea Keen-Eyed, but Nylea God of the Hunt is also a mana sink. She's just like, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn for 3 and a green, and I can just hammer that button and make all of my creatures lethal. Nylea Keen-Eyed is card advantage and also a mana sink. She's extremely
Do you have Ronus the Indomitable in there as well?
I don't have Ronus in here. I don't think he was as much of a like devotion payoff, which is the main thing that I was
true.
To.
But he is a mana sink payoff. Because he does Nylea's effect for 3 and gives +2/+0. But
oh. Yeah, I
also it's a 3 mana 5/5, so I mean, like, you know, take your pick of like undercosted over
yeah,
power and toughness.
Larges.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to think about. We'll consider that. I did just go with Nylea because we were like looking for the word devotion on cards, so that like made that show up in that. But that's a pretty strong effect on a green like creature type god. Who I always like to have like at least one of those in a deck. I think it's a fun thing to have your creatures and then the god that they worship. Like my Ezio deck has Erebos, God of the Dead, in the 99 because of course assassins and they have a relationship with the God of the Dead.
Yeah, Erebos is kind of base though.
Yeah, just shut the fuck up. We're not doing any life gain. Get him.
I'm dragging you back to the underworld. You're coming with... Get over here.
I'm getting these life totals down below 10 so I can show you the hidden blades. I don't want you life gaining your way out of it. Ravager Worm. That's one of these bangers in here that I have.
Isn't that the one that enters and fights?
Yeah, this is a Gruul mythic from Ravnica Alliance, I think. Or Allegiance. There we go, that's the word. For 3 red, green, for a creature worm, 4/5 with a riot. And when it enters the battlefield, you choose up to 1. It fights target creature you don't control or destroy target land with an activated ability that isn't a mana ability. It's one of my fight spells. It's also a large. It also has a bunch of pips. All of that is things that we were looking for.
I do have to admit, on the one hand, when you do like kind of look at your deck overall, including like some of the stuff that I'm looking on the list here that we haven't talked about yet, but you're taking some things that kind of just like, it's your quote unquote generic Gruul value deck, but the value deck has such like a weird assortment of things that only work in the context of this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is such a very interesting... You're like, I have never seen a Ravager Worm in a deck, and yet it totally makes sense to put it in this deck.
Yeah, people are like, who the fuck is Sunder Shaman? And I'm like, well, for starters, Sunder Shaman can't be blocked by more than one creature, so jot that down.
Yeah. Let's start here.
It's got
Note
red,
one.
red, green, green, so it's another one of those pip-dense creatures that contributes a lot to devotion. I've got the fucking Cavaliers in here of Flame and Thorns.
Of course you have to.
Respectively 2 red, 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 and 2 green, green, green. And both of them have just absolutely banging effects. I am a huge fan of these cards, have been since I started playing the game. The Cavalier of Flame is a mana sink. I can spend 1 in a red to have creatures that I control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So if we're really in a pinch, we can just slam that button until I don't need to anymore and my opponents are dead.
I was going to say, this isn't... It's not as quite pip heavy, but like, I just thinking about all this stuff where you just have like all this mana sinks and stuff. Do you have Polis Crusher on the list or under consideration?
I have not heard of that card. Who's that?
So, Polis Crusher is 2 a red and a green for a Cyclops creature that's a 4/4 with trample and protection from enchantments. It has Monstrosity 3 for 4 red and a green, and when it deals combat damage to a player, if it's monstrous, destroy target enchantment that player controls.
Oh, sick. That's like old school Sunder Shaman.
Yeah, like, obviously, like, again, it's not as pip heavy and all this other stuff. Honestly, Sunder Shaman just beats that out. But
well, this guy has trample and protection from enchantments is the thing, so that's worth consideration. I do like that Sunder Shaman has the like evasion, but
yeah, the super evasion, yeah.
But this guy's cool.
Yeah, it's just one of those cards sitting in my collection.
A rare forever. From OG Theros, like nice. So yeah, that's basically the deck tech. We've got Ember Cleave, of course, because we gotta fucking show people the cleave, make them believe in it. We have a Raging Battle Mouse as a ramp spell, and it's got Celebration.
Raging Battle Mouse is so cool!
It's a weird ramp spell. It says the second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast, and if I've got oodles of mana, I'm looking to spend it on more than one spell usually. So Raging Battle Mouse helps me there. And at the beginning of combat on my turn, if 2 or more non-land permanents entered the battlefield under your control this turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's just a nice little buff there in addition to doing what it's doing. I really like when my mana dorks are performing an alternative function. Bramble Familiar in particular is a good one at that. For 1, it's a raccoon.
Neat spell.
Synergizes with Moira. And 2, it's a mana dork that can return itself to your hand. And why would I want to return itself to my hand, you ask? Well, that's because it's also got an adventure on it. It's Fetch Quest for 5 green green. I can mill 7 cards and then put a creature, enchantment, or land from among the milled cards onto the battlefield. So I just put a bunch of stuff into my graveyard and grabbed the biggest thing.
I put that raccoon in Kellen the Kid because you get your early game mana dork. You could bounce it back to your hand later and then be able to cast the super sick adventure side and then recast the familiar from exile later. You know, just put your land into play or whatever. Yeah. But it's just it is neat to have that level of versatility in a single card. You know, put as many words as you can, more card per card. You know,
it's all about more card per card. I love it when it's an early game mana dork and a late game mana sink.
It's very good, very cool.
Speaking of mana sinks, Elmar, Ulvenwald Informant, I don't know how long he's going to be in the deck. I might cut him for Ortheon, actually. But whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you untap target creature and then investigate. I thought the card advantage would be kind of useful from the clues. As it turns out, I don't care. I'll just recast Hugs.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like... how do I get out of this? Oh, Hugs, hi! It's
exactly.
it's the you existing in your room,
I've got that,
depressed.
Like, dark cloud over me. I'm just like,
and then Hugs kicks the door open.
Card draw? Oh, she Hugs, hi!
Oh my god.
I've got some bangers from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. The Outcaster Trailblazer is one of the ones I think I was talking about, like drawing cards for ferocious creatures. It does that, but also when it enters the battlefield, it adds 1 mana of any color, and you can plot it for 2 and a green. So if I don't quite have the fixing right to be able to cast Hugs and do the other stuff, I can plot this and then set that aside for the turn where I'm ready to have that color of any mana, or 1 mana of any color. I cast that without paying its mana cost per the rules of plot and get that mana, and I'm on my way casting other spells. We also got the Cactus Folk Sure Shot for 2 red and a green, a 4/4 plant mercenary with a reach and ward 2. And at the beginning of combat in your turn, other creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain trample and haste until end of turn. I love things that reference creatures power 4 or greater, and this guy gives those guys haste and trample. You really don't want my ferocious creatures to have haste and trample.
No, you really don't.
Nah. Roxanne, Starfall Savant. She's really annoying. For 3 a red and a green for a 4/3 cat druid, when legendary creature cat druid BT dubs. When she enters or attacks, you make a tapped meteorite, and when the meteorite enters, it deals 2 damage to any target. And taps to add 1 mana of any card. Yeah. And whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, you add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. So she doubles the mana from her meteorites, she doubles the mana that you make from treasures or whatever. She's also removal when she enters and attacks, because you can send those meteorites places and just pick off all your little techie little 1/1s and 2/2s. Your mana dorks, they're gone. Your fucking... If you have a Raging Battle Mouse and I don't, I'm gonna kill it.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we love Roxanne.
I was gonna say, I am glad that there's all these cards that take pre-existing printed Magic cards and do something interesting with them, and I hope we get to see more, like, X creature makes X card that is totally trash, but you put it on this one card, and then it becomes really fucked up.
Yeah, I really like it when old cards can, or not old cards, but like new cards get
a twist to like old card stuff.
I really like it when new cards provide functionality to older cards that you hadn't thought about previously. That's the sentence that we were looking for. There we go. We got there. Just like this Altar of the Pantheon. It's just a mana rock from Theros Limited, but in this deck it adds 1 devotion.
It adds 1 devotion, important. Yeah. And it doesn't it do something with you have a god or a demigod?
Yeah, it taps to add 1 mana of any color, and if you control a god, a demigod, or a legendary enchantment, you gain 1 life.
Ah, okay. So again, little bit of extra life gain buff on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, very cool.
Every once in a while, I need to send Hugs back to my hand. And so we added the Bene Supremo, Greater Good, so I could sacrifice him, draw 5 cards, discard 3, and then cast him and draw more cards.
Thank you, Sheldon Manry, for this super awesome spellbook.
Yeah, the art on that is incredible, and I hadn't had a Greater Good before this, so I was really glad to get my hands on this one.
It's kind of a fucked up card.
It is, actually.
Sometimes you're like, I'll even want to draw 3 and discard 3. Hell, sometimes I want to draw 2 and discard 3. Why? Only I'll know.
Sometimes you're getting board wiped and you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna get my value, and you just sack this, draw 5, discard 3, sack this, draw 4, discard 3, sack this, draw 2, discard 3. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm card selecting.
No, it doesn't. It does the work.
Yeah, I think that's the big cards in here. Is there anything in here that you saw standing out that you wanted to call attention to? The fucking gameplay experiences basically is where we're going next. I played several games with the guy. I'm truly fucking enamored of my build, the way that he plays. You ramp without spending a bunch of time on shovels because you're just playing extra lands. You hit people with larges. I don't give a fuck about instant speed interaction or protection because whatever, we're just going to draw more cards and play more lands if you blow up Hugs. I love to ramp into the sun, love to turn creature sideways, love to fireball for lethal. We've also closed out games with Xenaghost doubling Hugs' stats and then flashing an Embercleave. Sometimes we hit the Klothys' design and flash an Embercleave. We really want to put the Blackblade Reforged in one hand and Cleave in the other and set up a situation where heads fucking roll. And I really want in manga art, like stylized Hugs swinging the Blackblade Reforged. He would look so fucking cool.
You kind of get, like, you get Hugs in the pose, like the alt art for Mr. Orfeo holding, like, the two things with, like, crossed arms. So you just have, like, these super sick swords beside each other.
Yeah, Embercleave, the Blackblade Reforged. He's so cool. In summation, Hugs. Hashtag Gruul is the future.
Holy smokes. That truly was a bulk of the episode.
I really like this matcher.
Oh, jeez. Can I quickly summarize the rest of my stuff? We got time. Do you got time, listeners? Because we got the time. Listen, we're over 2 hours. We don't give a shit. We got the time. Let's do a TLDR, just because we do have time, but we don't have that much time.
All right, get into it.
I got to play with my buddies Phil, Brian, and Josh after a few months of inactivity. Stuff just got in the way. Some people's relationship with Magic has changed. Parenthood, stuff like that. So, we finally got together. We're going to see if we can try to do it, like, every couple weeks or so. But, like, obviously no promises. But it is nice to be getting back in touch and be like, all right, let's play games. Let's sit down. So I sit down, and I'm playing Shay Cormac and Lurrus of the Dream Den, because that was my new deck, and I wanted to get that out of the way. Yeah, I played Craig Boone, but, like, that's not as exciting as this. But my opponents, Phil was playing Joyra, Ageless Innovator. Bryant was playing General Kudro of Dranith, and Josh was playing Hazel of the Root Bloom. So this was a pretty interesting spread of stuff. Obviously, the double overlap of two Orzhov decks that are focused on removing the shit out of everyone else's stuff. So it was kind of risky business, but to our surprise, everyone was, of course, throwing down haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. And meanwhile, I'm sitting over in the corner like, oh no. But yeah, Joyra, Ageless Innovator, I had never seen this be played as a commander.
Yeah, I mean,
when left alone too long, you see Phil just start throwing out like Thunderhawk gunship and all this shit. And it was like, oh no, this is really bad. So bunch of artifact stuff. Bryant had a really strong start because he was doing human typal General Kudro, but when General Kudro also gives anthems on top of your other creatures giving anthems, so they have just a very bunch of large dragon slaying humans, and it was very scary. Unfortunately,
yeah, General Kudro is my fucking dude. I have a begrudging respect for that guy.
And that's something he also said other people do, is that they're like, damn, this dude just exiles shit and just kills stuff.
Yep.
It's brutal. And Hazel of the Root Bloom, 2 green, oh my god, excuse me, hiccups. 2 green, black for a 3/5 Scroll Druid where you can tap, pay 2 life, tap X, untap tokens you control, add X-Men in any combination of colors. That's messed up. And at the beginning of your end step,
pretty strong ability.
Create a token that's a copy of target token you control, and if that token is a scroll, instead create 2 tokens that are copies of it. So Josh was just popping off with all these different food and treasure and whatever tokens that were coming out, and it was just like, damn, this dude's just got overwhelming value. And then a bunch of angels popped out, and that was a problem, and then there was a giant 7/7 giant, and I was like, what the fuck? How did that get there? And he's like, because of this. I'm like, oh no. And he's like, and now I have 2 of them. And I'm like, oh no. And then, yeah.
Oh, no.
Not a great showing for Shay Cormac that day. But hey, let's talk about the Shay Cormac guy really quick. So, you know,
tell me about
he's the Bounty County guy.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, it's the Bounty Counter, but some people got misprints of Bounty County on, like, the etched foil version, which I thought was just very funny.
It is very funny.
So he's from the spin-off game Assassin's Creed Rogue, and he's an ex-assassin. That's why he doesn't have assassin on his tagline. He's a knight rogue, because he's a Templar. And the reason he became a Templar was because in his search for an Isu artifact as an assassin, he removed it from its holding place, which triggered a huge earthquake in Portugal and just razed a bunch of cities to the ground. So he's like, cool, so we're not going to do that again, right? And the assassins were like, he's like, cool, I'm out, see you later.
Well, damn.
And then in my case, I'm like, cool, maybe because I open up this foil one, I can pair it up with my Lurrus deck that I've been having had on the back burner. So originally it was a Lotho and Lurrus deck, but I just found that it wasn't quite to my liking. Like, I could cast a bunch of big spells sometimes, but some people were pretty smart about not casting stuff into Lotho, so I didn't have as many treasure tokens as I needed for, like, my big, dumb, like, Devoted Invocation or an Early Decree of Pain or stuff like that. So,
or like a Profane Transfusion, maybe?
Wasn't on the list, but obviously, like, kind of the same goal of, like, just big mana. Gotcha. So, someone was talking about Shay in a Legendary Creature Discord, and my first mentality was, like, obviously he's, like, your answer to killing, like, getting your opponent set up to be targeted by your kill spells, and I didn't want to, like, overdo it, so I'm like, Lurrus will be the Sarosh on Lord Godfrey's back from Elden Ring, so you don't go super duper crazy with all your, like, super awesome kill spells.
Okay. That picture that you sent me, gotcha, carry on.
Yeah, sorry, I know, I'm throwing out references, and you're like, I don't play Elden Ring, so I don't know
I'm
who
just
this guy
like,
is.
Himst?
Wherpst? Hoomst? So anyway, so I was like, cool, Lurrus is the permanent restriction of having everything 2 or less, and prevents me from being super murder hobo. Now, some of the revisions I've changed this thing, like, several times since I've made it, and the Aristocrats shell that was originally, like, a holdover from the Lotho half did actually win me a game, because someone was at 4 and I needed to use my Zulaport Cutthroat with a hidden stockpile to sacrifice my stuff to get him low, but then also the end step trigger would make a servo that I could also sack and trigger Zulaport Cutthroat again. So hey, great. Still, like, managed to get my win when I was on the back burner, and if I didn't do it, I would have lost. The trade-off, of course, is that now that I've kind of improved and changed the removal package, we got actually a lot of spells that have the potential of killing more than one thing in this deck. Wretched Confluence can get early stuff with the -2. Oh, actually, I should probably explain what Shay does. What the fuck? Okay. 1 white, 1 black, 1/1, Human Knight Rogue, pay 1, permanents your opponent's control, lose, hexproof, indestructible, protection, shroud, and ward until end of turn. Alright, awesome. You get super Shadow
Is there
Spirit effect.
a thing in the lore about that? Like a Shay Cormac always hits his mark type of line?
I don't know that much, unfortunately. All I just know is that he's this Irish guy who got really mad for causing a big unnatural disaster that killed a bunch of people. So he just went out after a bunch of targets and just killed them. So I think that might be the reference. So the other part says, whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes the target of a spell or ability you control, put a bounty counter on that creature. And then whenever a creature with a bounty counter on it dies, you put 2+1 counters on Shay Cormac. So we get this little engine that is still kept in check by Lurrus, with the likes of Retribution of the Ancients, Feast of the Victorious Dead, and using certain spells and effects like Deadly Designs, which you accumulate plot counters on it, and anyone can contribute to it, and eventually it'll pop. And then it says you can destroy up to 2 target creatures by sacrificing it with 5 or more plot counters on it. Then we got stuff like Curtain's Call, Malicious Affliction, Reckless Spite, and the Wretched Confluence to multi-target things for, like, a fairly low cost. Targeting them with a spell plus the bounty counter, and then they die, and then you get 2+1 counters on Shay. The kind of just general cool thing is, like, the removal suite kind of feels like pretty cool for what I have on hand. Getting Curtain's Call just felt great. Putting in Chain Assassination for maybe being able to swing in with Shay for being a large goes in unblocked or uncontested. Being able to cast it for the free running cost despite the fact that he's not an assassin. The +1 counter synergy with Retribution of the Ancients is pretty silly when you can pay a black, remove +1 counters off Shay, kill something for -X, put 2 +1 counters back on Shay, effectively reload depending on like how much you got. But we also have the likes of Shale, Dean of Radiance, the previously mentioned Feast of the Victorious Dead, which, like, if you go to your instep, if one or more things died, you gain that much life, and you distribute that many +1 counters among stuff you control, and that way you can use that on your Retribution of the Ancients to do it again.
Ooh.
And I finally was kind of able to, like, deploy an earlier concept that I had years ago with Killian Ink Duelist, where Killian says that spells that you cast that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. And obviously, if you target more than one thing, the cost reduction just applies to, oh, hey, I'm going to cast Generous Gift for 1 mana. I'm going to cast Isother's Faithful Strike for 2 black. I got to cast Powered Kill for 1, stuff like that. So, has a bit of a better trade-off. You can cast Dregs of Sorrow, where
Is that
you
that
pay
X cost kill spell?
Yeah, so it's 4 black and X for a sorcery that says destroy X target non-black creatures, draw X cards. So then you just target however many you want. Killian does the major cost reduction, and then you just pay, I don't know, black, and then just draw a bunch of cards. Seems pretty good for as long as your targets are non-black.
All right, now here's the real question.
Yeah.
Are you on Tetsamok Primal Death?
I cannot.
Oh, he's too big, right. The Lurrus, damn.
Lurrus is keeping all this in check. So all of my permanents from...
I was just thinking about that. Like, what are you actually, like, restricted by with this? Because it sounds like you're fine. You just play a bunch of kill spells. But no, there's actually, like...
I really want to get on Tetsamok, and I'm being kept by Tetsamok by Lurrus of the Dream Den. But I'm also okay to do that because, again... The idea of having a just kill everything deck indiscriminately with no restrictions sounds really fucking annoying. And Lurrus being sort of the catch-all in terms of keeping myself restricted in some way, shape, or form seems good from the permanent side. And I still need to be like, I need to be careful because, like, my creatures aren't super great. And I really have to... Lurrus helps me recast Wurnog or my Skurstag High Priest or something. But yeah, I feel as if I will find a nice balance between low-cost stuff and high-cost spells and all this other stuff. I've had some fun with it so far. I do hope to continue having fun with it in the future as sort of being a... not necessarily a politics / like police deck of like, no, we can't have too much fun, but just kind of as an interesting puzzle for people to solve.
Sometimes you just want to play control, and that's fine too.
Yeah, but also you can make Shay a large, and then just turn him sideways for like fairly little investment. It's pretty sweet.
It's just playing control with like an actual like killing intent.
True, yeah. But I am happy to see March of the Canonized be put in this because I forgot that it is just 2 mana. And then eventually you just make a bunch of vampires, and then if you go to your instep, if you got your devotion as 7 or greater to white and black, you just start making those 4/3 flying vampire demons. Seems pretty good in this deck, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm into that.
And I was going to talk about some other stuff, but honestly, Hugs is a pretty good highlight for this episode.
Well, alrighty then. You wanna bring it on home then?
Yep. Once again, please reach out to us via YouTube or Spotify if you want to engage with the content. I normally don't say, hey, share, but like, I guess if you like give us a good review on Spotify, it helps the algorithm or something. Our numbers have been crawling up thanks to the Legendary Creature folks, so that's been pretty nice.
And what's that line by that one guy? Tell a friend to tell a friend. Yeah, do that.
You can find me at Uncommon CMDRMTG. You can find Quinn at Girl Dick Energy. You can find the Home Hub at HBVC_MTG. We are also on Instagram now. Probably should have said that at the beginning, but hey, I'm trying to update our Instagram page because apparently that's just something you can do. I've already tried following a bunch of our friends there. Hopefully that will be a good way to kind of get everything started. And yeah, as usual, everything we've discussed, or most of everything we'll discussed, will be in the show notes or the links below. So our deck lists, the stuff that we've looked at, and yeah, that's it.
All right.